Happy Wednesday morning to you, Cross Point Alliance Church, wherever you are. I'm walking down the hallway here at church. Do you know that you're loved and blessed by Jesus and that he's got his eye on you and he is watching you with joy and delight as you got up this morning, as you're getting ready, going about your business? I want to show you something real quick, and I want to talk to you a little bit about sheep. Check this out. Open the door. Look at this. This is beautiful. What a lovely sight. I love this picture, especially from this doorway. I come here a lot on this doorway and I just look out and I look at the expanse. That's all our property. It's got a little pond there at the end. But that is a beautiful picture. Of course, it's Tuesday right now. The schools are shut down, but it's been snowing all day. And this is the first snow, I think, of the season. So anyway, I'm not tired of snow right now. I'm actually quite delighted, very delighted in it. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about something that I did yesterday. Is I watched a video, and it was a contest. It was a sheep herding contest. And before I get into it, I just want to draw your attention to John chapter 10 here. I'm out in the foyer now. Got my ESV hard copy. But in John chapter 10, verse 11, Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." And a biblical image throughout the scriptures of God's people is that we're sheep. And Jesus just said so, like he lays down his life for the sheep. We're the sheep. People who follow Jesus are sheep. And we like to think of ourselves as strong and capable, and we can get it done, and we're competent. And yet sheep are anything but that. Sheep are very incompetent. Sheep are dumb. They need to be led. They need to be guided. They're not mean animals from what I understand, but they're very helpless. So with that in mind, so I watched this video and I was like, wow, the idea of Jesus being a good shepherd and shepherding his people just went way up in my mind because I was watching this sheep herding contest. And you can Google this, go to YouTube and get ready to get some instruction in theology and in the love of God. Sheep herding contest. It's like a competition. So I just want to come at it from two angles here, okay? So one, these owners would have these sheepdogs, and the sheepdogs would have to take these 3 sheep through these different obstacles as part of the competition. So they'd have to, like, a couple of examples would be, there'd be this hole in a fence or this opening in a fence, and the sheepdog would have to get the sheep to go through the opening. There was another obstacle. It was called a chute. It had a wide opening, then it got really narrow, and the dog would have to kind of shepherd the sheep into the wide opening and send them through the chute. And then the last one was like he had to get them in a pen. So some of the dogs were not good. They were anxious dogs, and so they were dealing with these sheep, but the dogs would be anxious, and so they wanted the sheep to go somewhere. And the sheep wouldn't respond. We'll get to that later. And so the dog would dart in and would pressure them. And in one case, one of the dogs actually bit a sheep, and the announcer was not having it. He was not very happy with the concept of a sheepdog biting a sheep. He's like, that should be like a disqualification. But when the dog would get irritated with the sheep, and you could tell sometimes that would happen, then he or she, I don't know what gender the dog might be, would dart in on him and would start to pressure him. And then the sheep would freak out, and then all of a sudden, they weren't doing anything that the sheepdog wanted. And the announcer, at least in one of the videos that I was watching, the announcer was like, the sheep cannot get anxious or stressed. The dog has to stay back, has to give them room, and yet at the same time kind of shepherd them. And I thought of that, and I'm like, wow. from a shepherding standpoint, Jesus is the good shepherd because he never causes us fear or anxiety. And a bad shepherd will do that, an under shepherd. Biblically, Christian leaders are called under shepherds. And I think anyone who's leading any kind of a ministry, or even if you're a parent, you would be like a sheepdog, like an under shepherd. So that's the one angle from like shepherding the sheep. But the other angle is the sheep themselves. Like it was, in some cases, it was just frustrating because the sheep, which is us, they wouldn't respond. Like the sheepdog is trying, sometimes good dogs who were doing it right, and the sheep are like, they're not having it. They're not going to go through that chute. They're not going to go in the pen. And they like keep circling the obstacle and they don't do what they're supposed to do. And I don't think the sheep cared. Like they weren't thinking, what can I do to help this sheepdog accomplish the objectives and then we can all be on our way? Like the sheep couldn't care less. They were just out there like, hey, what's going on? And I'm like, yeah, that's us. Like we too need shepherding. And yet, this is so true. Like we need shepherding and yet we don't want it. Theoretically, yeah, Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. But then when he actually starts to try to shepherd us, then there's part of us that's like, well, I don't want to go where, I don't want to do that. Or I don't want to go there. And because Jesus is a good shepherd, there are some times when he does kind of lean on us. He's like, okay, you need to kind of firm that up. But then other times, I think he makes his will known. And like, we don't want to go where he wants us to go. And so like, he'll kind of leave us alone. And in some cases, look, this is amazing. The sheep would get so irritated at the sheepdog, they'd turn around and they'd look at him, kind of lower their gaze a little bit and stomp their feet, which was like an act of defiance, or they just got messed up in their minds. They were viewing the sheepdog as someone who was out to injure and harm them, when in reality the sheepdog was just trying to get them to go where they needed to go. Incredible. I've been preaching and teaching the scriptures for 14 years, and I know that Jesus is the good shepherd, and I know that we are the sheep. John 10, half the chapter is about Jesus being the good shepherd. He says that. And yet, I didn't grow up working with sheep. I've never had a sheepdog. These dynamics were incredible. I challenge you to avail yourself of some of this material on YouTube. Sheep herding contest, and I think the Lord will minister to you in that, in not only highlighting Jesus's excellence in shepherding us, but also in highlighting our identity as sheep and how things really work out for us when we just go where he wants us to go. And even though we might not understand why he's wanting us to go somewhere, if we yield to his leadership, things just, he's looking out for us. But then when we get mixed up and then we start like getting confused and getting anxious or going in a different direction, like it's like the parallels were astounding. Honestly, they were astounding, and it definitely helped me. I want to pass that on to you. So, hey, let me pronounce a blessing on you, Cross Point. We're being blessed this season. I'm so happy for you that you get to be part of what Jesus is doing. I'm getting to be part of what Jesus is doing. Just real quick before I pronounce the blessing. Check. Look at this. This is amazing. Check. Check. Isn't that good? Lord bless you and keep you. Lord make his face shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. Love you, Cross Point.